Today we're going to be installing and testing a 2009 Hampton-based San Marino ceiling fan. So I got two of them from Face Rip You Off, Steal Your Data, Provide Zero Customer Service, Lying, Sound Stupid Garbage Book, Hacker Book. And got them for, I got two of them I got for $40. I thought it was a pretty good deal, so I bought them. I've been wanting a San Marino for a long time, and it just never happened. It is a very, very, very nostalgic model to me. So, yeah. Let's go ahead and get the thing up and see how well it works. I've been told they're pretty noisy fans, but the Hampton Bay fans that have a reputation of being loud, from my experience, are pretty quiet. So we'll see if that makes it. I'm going to install the mounting bracket. And here's something that the Hampton Bay haters would make fun of. That is, you can slide the bracket onto the box, which I find this is very helpful. And unfortunately, the fans are flush mount. This does not have a ground wire, so I am going to just have to. So the ground is just gonna get shoved up in the box. Yes, I hear you guys in the comments box saying, "Oh, that's not correct." Well, I would not do it. I would cap the wire off if I was installing it in a real use case. Well, actually, I would find a ground wire and screw it onto that screw, but just for a test, it will be fine without the ground wire. Plus, this is grounded anyway because this is a grounded metal box, so the fan would be grounded anyway, whether you connect the wire or not. So it's perfectly fine to not connect the ground wire in a testing case. All right, now let's go get the fan. And these arrived with the blades attached, which is normally not something I'd be fine with bigger fans, but with smaller fans, I find, but with the smaller fan like this, as long as you're careful with it, I find it's perfectly fine. Okay. And I just realized you probably would see the fan better if the bracket was the other way, but this is just what we have right now. These wires are have so much insulation cut off. Like, what kind of funny goof wiring were they connecting this thing to? Yeah, you fold it half and it's the right length. Okay, yeah, the power's off. Now, this thing is very nostalgic to me. Now I'm going to tell you guys why. Years ago, on my days of walking to school, before I got a car, I remember there was one particular house that I would go by, and it had a Hampton Bay San Marino in the porch. And I also remember a couple of my friends from school had these Hampton Bay San Marinos in their homes as well. And of course, in the early 2010s, they were still on the Home Depot display. This is one of the newer Hampton Bay San Marinos, and you can tell because it has the integrated switch housing, not the detachable switch housing like what the older models do. Now, from my knowledge, the older ones in particular get more hate because of the capacitors failing. And it sounds counterintuitive, but if that's true, that would be one of the cases where the newer version is better. But the reasoning for that, if it was the capacitors failing, it would actually make a lot of sense because the older ones were made in the capacitor plague. And so a lot of capacitors failed. This newer switch housing, I think, was introduced around 2005, 2006, or 2007, whenever that took place. I don't know the whole history behind these fans, so if anybody knows, let me know in the comments box. And I'm also not sure what year these were introduced. I think they were introduced sometime in the early 2000s, maybe 2001. And we have one CFL bulb. Do I have any other CFLs as well? Because I remember seeing these with CFL bulbs, so I want to replicate that with these. And there was also another relative's house that I went to years ago that had the Hampton Bay San Marino fan in their stairwell. And I remember liking that thing. There's a YouTube video from the early 2010s of a kid installing a Hampton Bay San Marino. This is where it's really nostalgic. Okay, let's tilt the camera down a little bit. Okay, so I already measured the circumference of no air, and I'm going to calculate about 9 inches from the center. And some of these blades are awfully loose. I'm going to tighten them. Did they even use a screwdriver? Because these things are far from tight. It's been years since I've seen one of these San Marino fans run in person, but I've been told they're okay performers. It's just that the capacitors on these fail, which I don't know why people complain about a capacitor fail on these Hampton Bay fans, because it's certainly easier to replace the capacitor on one of these fans than it is to replace a flywheel on $1 million Casablanca. Wow, this one only has one screw in it? That is stupid. Well, just because it's a test, I am just going to steal a screw from this. And I'll show you this. This is from 2009, and it's still using polished brass hardware for the top of the blades. Although I don't know if that counts towards how ugly the silver color is. Normally, I am not a fan of the silver color at all, but the silver San Marinos I find are a lot more nostalgic than the bronze ones. The bronze ones, I like the aesthetics of that better, but the silver San Marinos I think are more nostalgic to me because I saw them a lot more. I don't think I've seen a bronze San Marino in person. It would be interesting to find one, but I have not seen one in person. Okay. I'm just going to move these blades here. Okay, here it is on. I realized I should have turned off that fluorescent light before I started, but I'm not gonna fix that. Just to take that clip out and undo the whole thing. All right, well, it is running. Okay, let's see how bad of alignment these blades are. Not too bad. I've seen a lot worse. This also uses the chintzy plastic Hampton Bay hull fobs, which, all honesty, I'm just glad these are the older style ovular shaped Hampton Bay fobs, not the ugly new ones. Yeah, the light works. You know what? Is there a stinking wattage limiter in the light? This is from 2009. It's a downrod fan, so it's new enough to have one. You know what? Just because wattage limiters are so unreliable, let's check and see if there's one of those dumb things in there. I hope not, because I don't even have a stinking wire cutters up here at the moment. Unless they're secured by wire nuts. Wow. No stinking wattage limiter. Good news. Fans, alarms, lighting, etc. would be happy to know that there's no stupid wattage limiter. Now, I don't know if these had the light kit detached from the box or not. It's not terribly hard to assemble, but it is sacrificing reasonable ease of installation with kind of hiding some screws, which this is a normal switch housing, so I would find it acceptable. Now, all seriousness, I know this is in the ugly silver color, but I still really like this fan because of the nostalgia this has. Now, in the right use cases, this I think would be a pretty reasonable fan for. Okay. Alright, plug this thing back in. Here's the lights. I remember starting up one of these San Marinos in person, and I remember that exact startup sound when you, or startup look of the light when you flip the pull chain on for the first time after a while. I find that very nostalgic. Alright, let's see how the fan does. Start up on high. Oh, this has a startup sound. Well, amazes me. It's actually not noisy. The San Marino, from what I've been told, is one of those hated models. And again, I don't understand what the issue is with these. I was told that sometimes the speeds don't work, and that's usually a capacitor failure. Now, in its defense, the models they're talking about were likely the older models, and those were made in the capacitor plague era. So I could see why that would be an issue, because, I mean, us fan collectors can replace the capacitor just fine, but the average person is not going to know how to do it. But that doesn't mean they're horrible fans. I've heard from some people that they're horribly loud. And I disagree with that 100%. Because this is pretty quiet. Has a little bearing noise, but it's nothing too awful. Alright. We'll go with 452 as our feet per minute. Now, as I said, I did do a circle of no air movement measurement, and I found 9 inches. Yeah, we'll go with 9 inches. So let's see, 36 divided by 3 is 12. 36 divided by 12 is 3. Divided by 2 is 1.5. Square times pi. Pi button. Our number is 7.1. We also have to subtract a circle of no air, which case 0.75. You have to square that times pi. Our number is 5.3. So times that by 452. That's 2,396 CFM. 2,396. So I think that's pretty respectable for a little 30-inch fan. Pretty good average. Now, I personally would think that an average for a 36-inch fan would be 2,000, and then above average would be 3,000, and then 4,000 is off the charts, like that Enviro fan that we tested about a month ago. I gotta say, it's working pretty good. This is drawing 39 watts and 0.32 amps, so power factor should be nearly 1. In which case the capacitor would still be working. Not to mention it's very quiet. Here's medium. I think that's slowed down reasonably enough. I think we can do another CFM test. Go with 315. So let's see here. 315 times 5.3. 1,670 CFM. Pretty reasonable for medium. This is drawing 32 watts and 0.28 amps. Now the low. Yeah, it's very quiet. I don't know what you all are talking about these things being noisy. I've seen a few of these run in person, and they were all very quiet. So, I don't really buy the claim that these are noisy. Because I don't think these are noisy at all. I think they're perfectly reasonable. I don't know what you all are talking about. I really just think it's just the Hampton Bay haters, for some stupid reason, spreading rumors about these being noisy. And I mean, the capacitor failures could absolutely cause the noise, but the fact that they're all being noisy is, I think, would be false, because the few I've seen don't make the awful cyclic hum that a couple cheap fans have done. They're all pretty reasonable. And this one here is no exception. This is very quiet. All right. We'll go with 177. It pushed up to 196. Let's do another measurement. We'll go with 177. 177 times 5.3. That's 938 CFM. So I think this has a pretty good range of speeds. It's a nice calm low, but a reasonably fast high, and then the medium is a pretty good in between. So I think this has a pretty good variance in speeds. This is drawing 30 watts and 0.29 amps, so I don't think the power factor is going to be 1, but I think pretty reasonable power factor here. I can feel a slight draft under it. It's nothing bad. Now, I don't know how much these would have costed back in 2009. Although what I do know is that these were pretty recently discontinued. I remember in 2023, I think, these were still being sold. And unfortunately, over the last recent years, these unfortunately have discontinued, which is really a shame because these were one of the more iconic Hampton Bay fans from the 2000s. And they're, of course, very nostalgic. But sadly, they are discontinued. But hey, at least I got 2 more while I was on a trip. So, yeah. I'll turn the thing off here. And I'll show you guys the information sticker for those who are very interested in seeing the informations on this thing. That's nothing exciting. This is something exciting. Okay. Says 0409, so probably from April of 2009. All right, well, I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and thank you guys for watching. Bye.